that moment when you go, ah, I shouldn't have taken all those days off the horn. Now, we've all had that moment. Really, we all have had that. And then as you practice and kind of get back in the groove, the great stamina and the range and endurance and your tone and accuracy and sound just seems to be a little bit out of reach as you practice every day to get back to where you were. At some point, it dawns on you that you are back, but how long was it that it took you to get to that point? And that's the ambiguous, elusive part of when you take off from this instrument. It's very unforgiving. Unforgiving, let me give you an example. I've been so busy over the last week that I wasn't able to get to the gym, my 3 or 4 days a week. So it's been 5, 6 days. I went to my same machines and weight workout routine thinking that I was going to be weak, not doing that well, not have a lot of energy. And because we're talking about large muscle groups, I actually felt stronger. I had a hell of a workout. That's a week off. So what's the difference in taking a week off from running, walking, working out, Zumba, yoga, hiking, whatever it is that you do? And then you get back in the groove almost right away. But on this instrument, What is the difference? I am not a doctor or a scientist, although I play one on TV. But I suspect that it's because of the extremely small, fragile, and fine muscle fibers that are right here in our face that are a lot different than the big muscle groups of our legs and our back and our shoulders and our chest and our arms. So it's very, very weird about our embouchure in the fact that within 24 hours of not playing, it seems like the tone and the muscles tend to atrophy right away. You know that, right? Don't believe me? If you've been playing 3 or 4 hours a day and gigging several times a week and you all of a sudden go to nothing for 3 days, try it. Your chops will just be like wet spaghetti. I mean, it'll just be like blah. I mean, my suspect is due to the fact that we have very, very small feather-like muscles around here and not the huge, dense muscles of our shoulders, buttocks, legs, back, chest. And then I guess the most dense muscles are our abdomen and our calves. Those are the ones supposedly you could work out every day and they're still going to get stronger. So this tutorial here is giving you a little bit of some inside information that can only come from a guy who's been looking at this stuff for decades. No, not 1 year, not 5 years. I've been playing longer than 5 years. I've been teaching, I've been looking at this stuff for maybe longer than some of you have been even on the planet. So I've come down to a ratio that you saw in the title, 3 to 1, 3 to 1, up to a certain point. What I figured out with my students and myself, it takes about 3 times whatever you took off to get back, up to about a month. After that, it changes. So maybe that didn't seem clear. Let's just give you an example. You're used to playing every day. You're used to practicing 2 to 3 hours a day, which is good for an advanced or professional player. Maybe you're in a rehearsal band once a week and you gig once or twice a week, or maybe once every other week. It doesn't matter, but you're used to playing a lot. You take off one complete day on your horn, and it just may take you 3 days to get back to where you were. A lot of times I do recommend that for myself and students, just to let this heal and let the muscles really get stronger and recuperate. Yes, you do have to do a graduated practice regimen for a couple days to get back to where you were, but you're going to be stronger, the way I have my students do it and the way I do it for myself. But so 1 day may not be the best example, but that is the ratio. 1 day off on the horn, and you got to take 3 days to get back to where you were. But now let's do a little bit more extreme. Let's do, you have a weekend jaunt with your girlfriend or your wife. Or if I'm talking to a female brass player, with your boyfriend or husband or partner. So you're going to be gone off the horn now for 3 days. What you're going to find is, now this is where the data really comes in, If you're used to playing a lot and your body's used to having a lot of practice, a lot of face time with the metal here, you will find that by taking 3 days off, in general, you're going to have to spend a good week to a week and a half, about 9 days, just to bring you back to where you were. So most of you don't know that, and so you get a little frustrated as you come back in a couple of days, and you're going like, "Crap, I only took off 3 days, but I'm not even playing as good as I was last week." Oh, that's why. So you need to have that in mind. You need to go ahead and prepare for that. If this summer is winding down in about another month, but maybe you have a week-long vacation with your family. And I know that's the case with some of my students. They're telling me, I don't know how I'm going to be able to practice every day, whatnot. So I give them the suggestions on how to do it, but the fact is, a lot of times you get distracted and you don't practice. So I'm here to tell you, you take off 1 week for the family vacation and don't touch this at all. I mean, nothing, zero. You're going to spend about 2.5 to 3 weeks just to get back to where you were. That's the sad fact, but you need to know that fact so you can prepare and just know, and that'll reduce your anxiety and frustration levels. Now, for all of us that fall into that parameter of a 3-to-1 ratio, you're always going to be able to cite the one exception. I remember reading, was it Roger Ingram's book, where he talks about that he traveled from, now it could be somebody other than Roger Ingram, I'm thinking Roger Ingram, but he moved from the East Coast, I believe, to the West Coast, and he wasn't able to practice. He said he did some mouthpiece buzzing or something like that. But he tells a tale about how he was off the horn for a week and started playing, and he just like, like he never fell off the horse. No problem, no nothing. He would be the exception if I'm quoting him correctly. Most of us would not be able to go a week without playing, and then all of a sudden, you're gigging, you're playing, you're teaching, you're doing all these things, you're practicing 3-4 hours a day. Most of us can't do that. He would be the exception. It's kind of funny. Here's a little bit of trivia that I found from one of Maynard Ferguson's interview. He tells a story about how people used to be amazed and in awe and wonderment. Wow, Maynard, you just show up to the gig and all of a sudden, I want 2, 3, 4, and then boom, he starts playing like, he's just killing it. And they're like, this guy is amazing. Maynard can show up on the gig and doesn't even have to warm up. Well, Maynard in one of his interviews says that he does warm up. He never just shows up to the bandstand pulls his horn out of the case cold and plays. And he said his secret is he's usually warming up in the car, at least during this juncture when he was playing. He was warming up on his drive to the gig or to the rehearsal, and he was all warmed up by the time he got there. So he didn't have to play but just a note or two, and then he went for it. So even Maynard, had to make sure that he was, warmed up and playing for a gig. And I suspect that if he took off a couple of weeks, he probably would feel it, and he would have to, definitely take some time to get back to the horn. So this is a very important tutorial, mainly for strategy, and mainly to reduce your stress, anxiety, and frustration. I mean, if you know in advance that if you go on that vacation, or if you're without the horn for 3 or 4 days, you just have to know it's going to take you triple the amount of time to get back to where you were before you stop the horn. That's very, very important data, folks. This tutorial, although it's free, I mean, it's priceless. It's gold in your pocket now that you know that. So let's carry it to extreme. You take off 2 weeks on the horn, expect to take, a month, a month and a half, probably a month and a half to get back to where you were. You take off 3 weeks, it may very well take you 2 months to get back to right where you were. It doesn't mean that you can't play, and it doesn't mean that you can't go to some of your gigs or rehearsals. It's just you will not be firing on all cylinders like you were before you took off. I mean, 3 weeks without touching this? Hello? Man, your face is going to go to jello. I'm just here to tell you. If you don't believe it, I mean, it is. It's just going to go to jello. Now, what happens when you get to a month? Now, once we get to a month, the ratio changes. So the ratio of that 3-to-1 magic elixir does kind of stop around a month. So after a month, the ratio changes. It goes down. It might go to 2-to-1. You take off, let's just say you take off 6 weeks. It's not going to take you 18 weeks, to get back in the groove. Maybe it might take you 2 months or something like that. So this ratio is useful up until about 3 to 4 weeks of not being on the horn. And this is for all brass instruments. So you can use this ratio because most of us aren't going to take off a month. If you do that, that means something's probably gone pretty bad in your family or for your personal life. Maybe you were in an auto accident. Maybe you came down with some kind of disease or something. So something tragic or bad happened if you're taking off more than a month on the horn. For most of us, it tends to be 3 days up to about a week is very, very common. And so you can expect if you took off a week on this horn, you need 3 weeks to get back to where you were. So again, this is an important, this is absolutely gold in your pocket now that you know this. And I've known it for quite some time and have been telling my students about it. And I thought, well, why keep it a secret? I looked around online to find out if anybody had any message or tutorial or data or information about this, and it seems like nobody talks about this or even knows about it. Or I'm sure people have thought about it because you're frustrated when you're off the horn and you come back and just like your mouth is like jello and you just can't play. So there you have it. Now you know. Now you can prepare. If you're going to take off 3 days on the horn, you need a week and a half or 9 days to get back. Most commonly, if you have to take off a week, 7 days, give yourself 3 weeks to really get back to where you were. It's going to take that amount of time. And the other thing is, and this is probably a topic for a different tutorial, and there is a way to get back. If you've been playing 3 hours a day and you take off for a week, you just don't come right back in on 3 hours a day. You're really going to shoot yourself in the foot. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed and really appreciated the gold that's in your pocket now from this video. You know now that when you take off the horn more than a day, times that by 3, and that's the amount of time it's going to take you to get back to where you were before you took off on the horn. Now you know. I'm Kurt Thompson. I really hope that you enjoyed another great video from my channel. You're a brass instructor. Of course, you could always go to TRUMPETSIZZLE.com and get involved in a plethora of programs that will really make the cream rise to the top in your own self and playing and your music education. And again, like I say, in some of the videos, you never have to take my word for it. There are just too many people reviewing and talking about my courses, giving an objective point of view on what happened to them after they studied with me and or went through one of my courses. It's right here on my channel, but it's also elsewhere online. So hope you enjoyed this tip and tidbit of information for all brass players, and I'll catch you in the next one.